When you're trying to create your own outdoor patch of paradise, you've got that first outdoor space, or maybe you've had a few gardens before, it can become very addictive buying plants, going to the garden centre and getting that instant impact to create your own patch of paradise. And building a garden that way is really rewarding because you get instant impact. You can go straight to the garden centre, see what plants look like, bring them home and put them into your patch. But if you're like me, you fancy a challenge, you want to try something a bit harder, maybe grow something that's not available as a plant and try growing something from seed. So that's what I've been doing in recent years. Now, when it comes to growing plants from seed, you start with something easy, something like sunflowers. So many of us will have grown these from seed. They grow quickly in 1 year. But once you've done that, you want to move on to the next challenge. So then I thought, you know what, I'm going to up the ante, I'm going to try something else. So I've grown Salvias from seed. I grow these really nice Abutilons from seed. And I was ready for the next challenge. So then I started growing Cannas, unusual tropical tomato relatives, and it just became addictive and I really wanted to try something new. One of the most challenging plants I've grown from seed are banana plants. They take so long to germinate, but once you get to that point, they grow away quickly, like this Musa cheesemanii behind me. So what was the next challenge? I would love to have tried something like Manihot grahamii, which is a really nice, hardy, cassava type plant with beautiful leaves. Just when I was trying to find seeds for that, I was selling plants at my local market and a good customer and friend of mine arrived with a bag full of berries, and these berries belong to the plant behind me, Brassaiopsis mitis, one of the most desirable plants amongst people that love tropical style gardens. Now this plant is cold hardy, it has these beautiful snowflake leaves, so I couldn't believe my luck. I found my next challenge. I was going to try and grow Brassaiopsis mitis from seed. So with the seed in hand, I started researching ways to get the best possible chances of success growing this plant. I messaged people online that I'd seen had had success germinating the seeds and people that were selling them and retailing them in commercial nurseries just to try and increase my chances because these seeds are very hard to come by. So now at this point I was ready to start sowing. Or so you would think. I think the fact that these seeds were so hard to get hold of, so rare, and such an opportunity for me to grow actually led to freeze. I was completely terrified of sowing them in case I messed up. And they stayed in our fridge for 3 or 4 weeks. Now, why the fridge? The fridge is the perfect place to store seeds. It keeps them nice and cool. I just had to pluck up the courage to actually try and sow these seeds to get this rare Brassaiopsis plant to germinate. So then it was time for me to figure out how to extract the seeds from those soft fruit berries. And all I did was press the seed down onto some kitchen paper, allowed all of the fruity part of the berry to dry out, and then the seeds were ready to sow. Now, I was very lucky. There were mostly 2 seeds inside of each berry, which doubled the number of seeds that I thought I was going to have available to sow. Those of you who subscribe to the channel will know that we work in a very small space and my propagators were already bursting at the seams, so I had to figure out how to sow seeds in a small space. And that is where these tiny pots come in. I managed to sow several of these every single spring. Rather than using a quarter seed tray, which is one of these that takes up more space, I can get more varieties of seeds growing in a limited space by using these. So this was the vessel I was going to sow my Brassaiopsis mitis seeds into. Now we sow all of our seeds into a peat-free compost, and this is a sieved multi-purpose compost, and it is perfect for so much of our seed sowing. Gently firmed it down, and then I was ready to sow the Brassaiopsis seeds. At this stage, the seeds have separated from the fleshy fruit and it's time for me to sow. And because we're limited on space, I've sown multiple seeds into each one of these pots, spaced out nicely so that they've got room to grow as young plants when they hopefully germinate. I then covered the Brassaiopsis seeds with a coating of vermiculite. This is a really nice moisture retentive material that will just keep water around the seeds, keep them hydrated to try and encourage germination. Then came the time to give it a really good soak, taking care not to disturb the seeds I've just sown. Then at this stage, I take the pots, cover them in a plastic bag, and that keeps all the humidity in, keeps them happy, and it will encourage the seeds to germinate. Hopefully, now's the waiting game, fingers crossed. Now in my tiny 6 foot by 8 foot greenhouse, I have 2 propagators. The first is this. It's a cheap, low-tech propagator, unheated, sat on top of a heat mat. I put half of the seeds I sowed up here. Down here is a veto pod. This is much more high tech. It's thermostatically controlled. I can set the temperature to exactly what I want it to be, and I've got grow lights across the top. So at this stage, I've got one propagator set to about 24 degrees Celsius and the other just on a low tech heat mat. And it's a case of waiting. I'm in and out of the house every day checking for signs of new seedlings popping out at the top of that soil. Nothing yet. Week after week, I was going out and checking the greenhouse, checking to see if the Brassaiopsis seeds had germinated, and they hadn't. Now I tell customers and other growers, be patient with seeds, give them up to a year, but it doesn't stop it being disheartening. To be able to grow a plant like Brassaiopsis mitis from seed would be the ultimate achievement, and I really, really want it to work, but it is just a waiting game. Okay, good news. I've got something to show you in the greenhouse. I was so excited. I went out there and did my standard daily check of the seedlings, and finally we have some movement. So I've come in and peered over just as I normally would, and there was a little green shoot popping up there. We have movement. One of the many pots of Brassaiopsis seeds has germinated, and there are multiple seedlings popping up. This is great news. So you might have noticed I swapped the plastic bag for a clear Perspex sheet. It does exactly the same thing. Any water that evaporates out from the pot condensates on this and drips back in, keeping the soil moist and encouraging the seeds to germinate. Now it's almost 4 weeks to the day I sowed these seeds, and they are germinating. And I'm wondering if actually me getting nervous at the start of this, keeping the seeds in the fridge, actually was a mechanism that made them think that winter had happened, and then the warm temperature of the propagator has triggered germination, because 4 weeks is much faster than I had expected for something like this. And I can count 1, 2, 3, 4 in here so far. So fingers crossed everything goes well and the slugs and snails stay out of the propagator, because that will be very disheartening. At this stage, I'm going to leave that cover off because I don't want these seeds to rot. So leaving the cover off or taking the plastic bag off is going to allow good airflow around these seedlings. I'll leave them in the heat of the propagator under these grow lights to try and encourage strong, healthy growth early in their life. Great news, we now have 2 pots with seeds germinated. The first pot is looking incredible. You can almost recognize them as Brassaiopsis seeds now. They've got those jagged leaves and tiny little spikes starting to form up the stems, which is just like the mature plant. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 have germinated in this pot, and we've got another 4 or 5 in the second here. This is incredible. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more pots of Brassaiopsis seeds that could well germinate. Just because a couple have doesn't mean that they're not going to. So I'm going to be patient. Like I said, I struggle with. I'm going to be patient and see if the rest germinate. But these are ready for pricking out and potting on into their own individual pots so that they can grow into healthy plants with plenty of space. Now, just as before, I'm going to be potting on into these small pots because I can fit a lot into a limited space. And I'm going to use that same multi-purpose peat-free compost that I used to germinate the seeds. I know they're happy, I know they're growing in it, and they look really, really healthy. So I'm going to tease one out using a stick, trying not to damage the roots at all, and I'm just going to hold by one of the seed leaves, not the true leaves, the seed leaves, and definitely not the stem, because if I grab the stem and squish it, it's going to cause these plants to die. Gently teasing it out. Gently, gently. I really don't want to damage these plants. There we are. One Brassaiopsis mitis seedling. This has been many weeks in the making. I was nervous to sow the seeds in case this didn't turn into a success, but I'm so pleased that it has. Then I'm just going to make a hole in this pot, and gently drop it in, using my stick to get as many of the roots down below soil level as I can. It's okay if the stem's a bit lower in the soil than it was as a seedling, that's fine. It'll encourage this stem to put out side roots and make for a stronger plant. And then I'm just going to top it up with some soil and firm it in, taking care not to damage the roots, not to damage the stem. Oh, I am so pleased. One Brassaiopsis mitis seedling. I am a happy man. Now I'm going to put this back in the propagator to give it plenty of heat and reliable light from the grow lights. and hopefully these will grow on into beautiful young Brassaiopsis plants. Now, the first one of these plants is definitely going to go back to the customer and good friend who shared these seeds with me, because I am very, very grateful that he did. This has been a hell of a journey. Thank you. Now, I'm lucky enough to have two Brassaiopsis plants in the garden. The first is this one, which has been planted out for 2 years now. So it's survived one winter and it's been out for 2 summers. And you can see it's way above my head height now. It's probably going on for maybe 7 or 8 feet, possibly even closer to 10. The stem is looking really, really vicious, which is a good thing because it's keeping slugs and snails off of the leaves high up, because they can't navigate their way up that stem to get to all that tender young foliage. I have no idea how long it's going to be for our seedlings to get to this size, but when I have loads of plants putting out these leaves, it's going to be incredible. And I'm not going to keep them all for myself. They will be making their way to the online shop in due course. And the second Brassaiopsis plant I've got is here, next to the Musa cheesemanii, which helped fuel that addiction for trying to grow rare, unusual, and really beautiful plants from seed. Now, hopefully you've enjoyed being part of this journey with me, and let me know if you want to see more videos like this, sharing the process that I go through to grow some of these really, really special plants, whether it's for the shop or just for my own collection of plants in the Grow Paradise garden. Hit subscribe, it's the easiest way to support the channel, and if you're in the UK, feel free to check out our plant and seed shop. And we've got the International Growers Forum, which is a great community of people just helping each other grow this style of garden and these plants. So feel free to check that out at growparadise.social. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all in the next one.